Well, good afternoon. When the lights come on, it's usually time to start. So I will call to order the May 20th meeting of the Oklahoma City Riverfront Redevelopment Authority. Under items of the chairman's is we had an appointment of City Council Trustee Bradley Carter will be replacing Mark Stonecipher, but I don't believe Bradley's here yet today, maybe. Anyway, that has taken place by council, and and the vacant position for Ward 3 has not been selected yet, so. Item 3 is a meeting minutes from the March 25th meeting. Do we have any changes or corrections? Need a motion? Cast your vote. And that passes. Item 4 is the consent docket. We have an oil and gas revenue report and a river corridor events update. Any questions on either one of those? Cast your vote. That passes. Item 5 is our primary agenda items. Item A is a Riverfront Redevelopment Authority operating budget for 25-26. And I know we have some questions. Do we have somebody here that can answer questions on the budget? Well, Melissa, were you involved in the budget?
Hello, Chairman.
Or do you want me to turn right here and move it on up the ladder? But it just seems that some of these are really out of line, not only from last year, but what the present is currently. An example would be oil and gas royalty is only at 18 currently. Mm-hmm. You budgeted 69 last year, but you're budgeting 59 this year.
Yes. It's just a projection for a downward trend in oil and gas revenues that we had experienced over the last 12 months prior. Just like in today's royalties report, it was down, and it's just a projection. So we're hoping to conservatively project the amount and praying for it to be higher. So that just reflects that pessimism and optimism for growth.
You have a significant decrease in event permitting for next year. Is it some reason you think that's going to drop off?
Yes, a little bit. Depending on how events in general are kind of starting to wane a little bit. As the economy contracts nationwide, flexible spending tends to kind of start going away. And so other groups are either becoming a little bit more conservative in how they're spending their dollars. And so as our entire economy contracts, we tend to contract a little bit too as well. Again, we're just trying to be really cautious and not over project and giving ourselves as much room as we possibly can and hoping that we're wrong. I mean, I always want this to prove us wrong in the black, not in the red.
On supplies, expenditures, you've only spent $300 so far this year, but you budgeted $307 for next year. $307,000 versus $312.
Yes, and I'm not exactly sure what the $300,000 in supplies is covering exactly, other than if it's helping with. Well, honestly, I'm not exactly sure what the supplies cover, unless my budget analyst can help me.
Okay.
Balanced budget. Mike, would you mind stepping up to the mic and helping us, please? Thank you. This is Mike Smith, our business manager for Parks and Recreation.
So, Mr. Chairman, what we have to do is a balanced budget act. So what we're doing is budgeting all the funds just in case there was a rainy day. There is, of course, as you see, we keep having the beginning fund balance each year. Well, that is because we don't expect to spend all these funds, but we do have to have a balanced budget per state law. So that's the reason we budgeted there is what we did. And the actual column, just so you see that too, those actuals were taken on February 19th was when we were building this budget stuff. So it has updated a little bit since then. I just didn't have time today to try to get them ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Kathy, I know you had some.
Yes, I do. I do have some concern about the way that you're budgeting. Those numbers are really inconsistent. And I would love for us to be able to have revenue over $1 million, but it seems inconsistent with what we've done in the past.
And a piece of that brings in the beginning fund balance, is what it
Yeah, I see
does.
that.
So that is a piece of it that rolls over and counts into the subtotal for your operating revenues. So that goes back again to, we budget for the Balanced Budget Act. And I think we would rather prefer to budget you to give you authority to all your money without having to come back if a rainy day did happen and say, we need to go here, but also city council to amend the budget. So that's a piece of what we're trying to do, is just say, in case the rainy day happens, we have funds budgeted.
And also remember, as being a PPA and being a trust, the funds, they don't disappear at the end of every year like they do for the general fund budgets. So these budgets roll forward year after year. And so that increase is showing that growth of expected growth year over year prior.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, get a motion to approve that, please. Cast your vote. That passes. Item B is the Oklahoma River Project Summary. Morning.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Joe Shumway, Oklahoma City Public Works. Our summary for the month of May is as follows. We still have MC 0754, which is the May Dam Rehabilitation Project. That project has been going well despite rainfalls that have been impacting the floodway. David. Also, multiple contractors have been working within the floodway. As you'll see here in the photo, 3 of the gates have been prepped and painted and completed essentially, while they work on the other half of the dam. In the distance in the photograph, you'll also see some heavy equipment, and we are removing sediment away from the dam so that it doesn't impede the operation once it's impounded. Also, in the eastern basin, we have MC 0672, which is the First Americans Museum riverboat landing. We've gotten quite a ways through this project. As you can see, the notch is now within the river, and also the tiered amphitheater in the background. Also, you can notice in the photograph how it within how the bridge kind of impacts the project as well. David? This is kind of from the west, or from the east looking west. You can kind of see again that tiered amphitheater. They will begin paving and landscaping and installing the lighting on this project very shortly, with a nice view of downtown in the background as well. During the month of April, our crews also removed 488 cubic yards out of the eastern basin alone, since the other 2 basins have been drained for the May Dam rehab.
Any other questions? No, thank you. Motion to accept that. Cast your vote. And that passes. Item C is a presentation on the Meridian Corridor Placemaking Report. Uh-oh.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates. Address is 1 East Sheridan Avenue. Before I begin, quick thank yous. Kim and Jeff with the planning department and their whole team were really instrumental in getting this done, particularly as we ebbed and flowed in the beginning of where this report would land. Meridian has some unique challenges, but a lot of opportunities. And so we appreciate them and their graciousness as we really worked through this to find what was best for the city and ultimately the river. And then thank you to AJ with ADG and his team there. We feel like what we were able to put together works for Meridian today, potential future bond projects, but then also in the far term after and if the RTA gets approved. It will dramatically change the corridor. So with that, I'm just going to jump in. Thank you. So we started this project in fall of 2023. Since then, there was a significant amount of public engagement that was done. We sent out mailers to all the property owners and business owners, and then we held a series of stakeholder engagement meetings, some open houses, and then a lot of one-on-one interviews with folks like the FAA, the fairgrounds, hoteliers, various people who have a very vested interest in and on the corridor. So we took that all the way through really the beginning of this year, and we were able to finalize the report, present it, and have that accepted by the City Council. If you go to the next one. Thank you. So these are those stakeholder groups that we discussed. City of Oklahoma City, Champion Hotels, the CVB, Will Rogers, Tinker, Fairgrounds, FAA, and then a lot of other smaller independent business owners. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to AJ to walk us back through the history of the corridor, and then we'll come back and wrap it up.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so just appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. As this project progressed, it took on an even larger river focus, and so we just thought it would be helpful to kind of share with you some of our thoughts on that. Many of you know that Meridian has a very strong history in our city, overall history, has a very important role in terms of how it interacts with the airport, but also with the fairgrounds, as well as our ability to continue to keep the FAA and continue to have job activity there. Many that we engaged with talked about Meridian much in the past. There was a lot of talk about Applewoods and go ahead and skip to the next one there. Molly Murphy's, and there was a sense, I think, that many people felt like, especially once those places left in the late 90s, early 2000s, that the district had started to lose some of its previous personality, and those restaurants in particular seem to act as front doors. But in the meantime, we've seen a lot more river investment, and there was quite a bit of investment in the early 2000s. But since then, I would say that it felt like people had stopped talking about Meridian a little bit. Interestingly, I went back, it was not mentioned in the String of Pearls originally, and that was probably because it was such a active, ongoing interest at the time. But then in the early 2000 river study that helped set up the Scenic River Overlay districts, it did kind of get brought into the fold. And so we, as we talked with people, we started to feel like this was really an opportunity to reinvent, or to at least to recharge the conversation about Meridian and its role within our larger river. Go ahead to the next slide there. So this is Meridian today, as many of you probably experience it. We realized that often people will drive almost all the way through the bridge before they realize they even saw the river when they're traveling north and south. And so there's some improvements that we suggest about how we might want to change the plantings especially on the north side. Go ahead. And ultimately, we focused on 6 areas. We talked a lot about a business improvement district. That's been a discussion that's been ongoing there for 15 years. But a lot of that really needed to be seeded with what was possible and really get people energized. And this effort, we think, really went beyond just the hospitality users. We were able to talk to some of the longtime owners and some of the non-hospitality users. And there really did seem to be an interest by the time we were done of people that wanted to start to get more serious about creating a board in that area. The second area was the I-40 bridge enhancements, and really the reason we're here today is that third one, Riverfront enhancements. Mark's going to get up and talk to you about the streetscape enhancements a little bit, and then we, of course, safety and security came up very frequently when talking to people. And lastly, one of the hallmarks of any of these districts is how do you continue to grow your brand through events and shared branding of the businesses. Go ahead. With that, I'm going to have Mark come back up.
So as this started, it was a placemaking study. And what we quickly learned is Meridian is not unique in that Oklahoma City is going to face these challenges on most of their aging suburban corridors as the next few decades unfold. And so that kind of brought us a step back from doing traditional placemaking study of trying to figure out what events can go out here and how to engage folks. There's not a lot of residential development in and around the corridor, partially because you're near the airport, and that's been discouraged. But so we started to look at how can the street function better today in the short term, and then what will it be as we move forward. So one of the low-hanging fruits was how do we expand the medians? If you went back and looked at that picture that AJ just showed of the corridor today, there's a significant amount of overhead electric lines. There are some high transmission lines that service the whole city that run through this corridor. What that prevents us from doing is really any significant or dense landscaping at the back of the curb, because we can't plant shade trees. So what we looked at was if expanding the medians gives us an opportunity for enhanced landscaping to help beautify the corridor. And that's what this exhibit is showing. If you go to the next one. The other thing that we looked at was the city and public investment alone isn't going to be able to completely revitalize this corridor. It's going to require business owners and property owners to put their best foot forward to improve their properties. And so we used Boot Barn as an example because it's one of the more rooted and recognizable businesses on the corridor today. They have a tremendous parking lot that is a bit underutilized. And so if you go to the next one, what we've pitched is these, rather than tearing down a building and building it out to the street in good urban design, it's what are these small steps that can be taken? And so what we've done is essentially put a private plaza in their parking lot that ties the sidewalk back to their front door that can be used for their own personal events. They can do sidewalk sales, they can do other things. Now, we don't know that Boot Barn will do this, but this is just an example of how an existing business on the corridor can do a smaller investment and improvement to help aesthetically improve Meridian. Go to the next one. So then we started to look at the streetscape itself. And so this is what it is today. You can see Boot Barn in their red columns. That's kind of going to be our anchor point in the images that we show that will help place you. So if you go to the next slide. This one is, in the short term, what can be done, and that is expand and extend the medians, and there's multiple ways those can be landscaped, pavers, hardscape. The other things that we want to see are additional light poles and then some signage that you'd see in most other districts around Oklahoma City, so you can see kind of the light poles and the banners on those. The next slide. This is the what we hope to be kind of best case scenario. One day we'll get there. When the RTA passes, the plan calls for fixed rail from the airport downtown, and that route travels down Meridian. And so we looked at case studies of where else has this occurred, and with the planning director, we really dug into Salt Lake City. And if you look at their suburban corridors where the fixed rail went down, they were completely transformed. So we're showing larger mixed-use buildings. We don't anticipate this to happen in the next 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. But if you look at places like Salt Lake City that have very similar corridors to Meridian, what you do see is intense densification that has occurred. And so as the city is going through their zoning code update, we talked to this in the report, there are things that the city can do from an entitlement standpoint to encourage some denser projects to move forward. And I think it's an important thing to stress. The Boot Barn, you still see those red cones. We think that there's a way where the existing businesses that are out there can continue to operate and thrive while all of this continues to go on around them. So if you go to the next one, this is another view, just kind of step back from the curb. If you go to the next slide, you can see the pedestrian zone. Widening the sidewalks, pulling them back off the curb are all things that we'd like to see happen. We know today Meridian isn't the most walkable district, but some light changes of moving some sidewalks around and putting a buffer between the pedestrian and the curb, I think will help. There's a fixed group of people that are on this corridor, and that makes it a really unique opportunity to connect it a little bit differently. When we talk to the FAA, a good portion of the students that come in every year stay on Meridian, and those folks don't have cars. The FAA actually operates their own public transportation to pick them up and drop them off. And so we know that they're out here, and they're likely using Uber Eats and other things to get their food. And so if we can make the district a little bit more inviting, we can pull those folks out of hotel rooms and get them to restaurants and activities on the corridor. And then the next slide, again, this is just the long-term vision, having properties as they get redeveloped, completely redo their frontage to make it more inviting. At the end of the day, I think that's the goal, is how do we make Meridian aesthetically pleasing and an attractive place to either walk through or drive through when you're leaving the airport and headed toward downtown. So if we go to the next one, I'm going to turn it back over to AJ to talk about the bridge and the river.
So in talking to the stakeholders, we really tried to keep three opportunities that were fairly imminent in front of their face, because sometimes it can feel like these sort of activities are very far out in the future. The very first opportunity is that bridge is understood by ODOT as needing to be replaced. So, when will that happen? It could still be over a decade, but there is an opportunity for us as a community to have some input, and Meridian in particular, about what that bridge looks like in the future. In the meantime, we wanted to show them what might be possible with some of the approaches on either side. I'll get to that in just a second. The second opportunity was that light rail that Mark mentioned. That is something that's been identified by the RTA. We understand that there is a vote sometime in the future about trying to create the funding mechanism for that. There may be other transit options that end up supporting this corridor in the meantime, and so we wanted them to start thinking through that. And the third thing is the GEO bond, which we understood would be arriving in late 2025. And as far as we know, that this project is still part of the discussion of that. And so we feel like that one in particular, we were really able to use these conversations to educate that streetscape that Mark just walked you through. So go ahead, and this is just us trying to show what's possible. To underscore, we're not trying to predict the future. We're just trying to get them to see the value of what it means to start to talk with each other and to start to talk with a unified voice to those sort of agencies that are going to be implementing some of the projects we just talked about. So we tried to show some opportunities where they could do some art. They had some very preliminary conversations about how they might want to start to brand themselves moving forward. West End is a name that's been suggested. We proposed that maybe there is a real back and forth in the district about whether or not they want to be Western themed or they should lean more into to their history of flight. We thought the Pegasus was a fun idea to marry those two. It didn't go so well with them, I understand, but I would say don't base it on our design, base it on working with a branding company that really can help give them many options. Go ahead to the next one. This is something we're showing just that they could do very minimally with this, very similar to some of the things we did at downtown OKC while I was there. Go ahead. Just trying to brighten that up and try to give it a little bit more personality. Go ahead. So this just gives you a sense of where Meridian is within that larger overall river corridor, just to underscore what the String of Pearls plan really initially gave us as a community. We understand that there's conversations about a new river plan. We think that's very exciting. At the time that we started this conversation, we didn't know that was coming, but there clearly started to be a sense that we needed to start to get people talking about Meridian on the river again. And one of the things that really was an aha moment for us was talking about what some people are seeing in Fort Worth in terms of trail-oriented development. So they're having such success on the Trinity River. They're starting to have businesses that are building specifically to be there. People are riding the trails and they're stopping to grab lunch, to grab a drink. And that's certainly something that we think could happen in Meridian. It has that history of hospitality, and it has, I think, the desire to build a new beverage, eating and drinking. Go ahead. So we wanted to show people, especially on the north side, I would argue that most of those buildings don't even realize they're on the river. And so we wanted to take an existing building and help the whole community think about what that might look like if you actually started to turn towards the river. Especially on the north side, we think you might be able to actually squeeze a road in that could unlock some additional development to the far end. And so go ahead into the next. That just shows what the existing, what is that building, Mark? It's the basket barn. I always want to call it the candle. Basket barn. That's the basket barn building. Very, very open concept that could very easily be changed to some other land use. You would have to terrace down to the river trails. Right now, you'll see in one of the future images, hold on one second, that is fenced off, so there's absolutely no way that you can interact with that property to the trails. We talked to people that use the trails quite a bit that argued that, because of homeless encampments, because of loose dogs, they don't really feel very safe riding these parts of the trails. And the way that you fix that is you start to put more people on them. If you see to the north, that's where that river is, the extra road I talked about. It creates a four-way intersection just there on the left. That's really important for helping get pedestrians back and forth. And you can see where some additional buildings might be possible with future study with that new road. Lastly, I'll point out we're showing a trail extension on the south side that currently doesn't exist, and that would run along some of the new hotels. And we also proposed that if and when a new bridge is needed, or if there's some way to retrofit the existing bridge, there really is no sense of arrival for the boats as they come to this part of Meridian. And so both for trail riders, for boats, for people in cars, we have not done the best job we can, I think, of trying to underscore through our infrastructure investments that this is a special place. And so we think those sort of bridge improvements would be very helpful. Go ahead. I should mention one last thing. Looking back at those old plans, there is actually a proposed north boat landing that would mirror the one on the south side. So we did show that. This is what the trail looks like right now. Go ahead. And that's what it would look like with those sort of improvements. Go ahead. I don't remember if we have. So those are just some of the final implementation pieces in the plan, trying to break out those different categories we talked about earlier across the short, mid, and long term. Go ahead. I think with that, Mark wants to join me. We can take any questions.
Hey, Jay, great job on this presentation, you and Mark. Quick question, is this area considered some sort of opportunity zone or TIF district or anything like that that would help some of the private partners finance some of these improvements?
It is not currently a TIF district, right? And that is something we talk about, though, in part of the implementation section, that there has been conversations at times about whether or not the right pieces are in place to make a TIF work here.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
All of these improvements would be an enhancement, but we have a real homeless problem in the area. How do we keep these projects from being a magnet to additional homeless?
It was very evident every time we engaged with the community. That was the first thing they wanted to talk about. I'll say again, the planning department.
Serious.
What's that?
It's pretty serious.
Yeah. This area was one of the benefits recently of the Key to Home program that helped with removing some of the encampments. The planning department did a great job of bringing as many resources they could to meet with those folks. I think the hope is, as the two things, as this group hopefully starts to join into an association, they can start to have more localized conversations about what they need to do and kind of act together. If they were to do a business improvement district, they might be able to actually hire additional security on their own that could augment, enhance the police patrols. There was, I think, a real commitment from the police department to continue to try to prioritize this area as well. And I would say generally in any of these sort of, we've seen it throughout downtown districts, once you start to make these sort of investments and you start to see this redevelopment, generally a lot of that will tend to go away. And I will draw a distinction too between homelessness and panhandling. This district definitely has both. So part of what I'm saying addresses those homeless encampments along the river. I think the city can continue to work with Key to Home program on that. Panhandling is, as we've seen through the history of the city, is kind of its own animal, and that may not go away as quickly. That may have to be something that we continue to work on.
The enhancements that have been done lately tend to be a magnet to them. I'm sorry to say that, but that's true. Thank you.
Any other questions? I noticed you had a lot of commercial space and looked like possibly some more hotels down there in that area. Is that something that group out there thinks is possible? It almost seems oversaturated now with hotels.
I don't know that we put a lot of new hotels. We put more restaurant. There was definitely a sense that the restaurants that were once there are not really assisting with the business that needs to happen. The Charlestons, we learned is one of the best performing Charlestons, but many shared with us that if that Charleston's were ever go away, that there'd be a real loss of where to take people for those sort of that level of lunch or dinner. And so I think what we're proposing is that rather than try to deal with the existing restaurant spaces, this would give them opportunity to start to create new restaurant spaces that take better advantage of the river. You want to add anything, Mark?
Yeah, just, one thing that we tried to make clear to the groups that we were going before was this was not a market study. But through conversations with the city and the Convention and Visitors Bureau, there is absolutely an appetite and likely a future where a larger tourism study happens to figure out what can be supported in and around the airport and in different districts. And so what we know from talking to the hoteliers out on Meridian is there's likely going to be 1 or 2 potential hotels in the future. What we've seen is that the older hotels that were maybe limited service hotels are being converted into housing of different types, both market rate and affordable. And so I think what we're likely to see is hotels decommissioned, turned into something else, so that new hotels can come online.
Sure. Any other comments or questions?
I think I'd like to add one more thing, is that I'm really grateful for this planning process happening in this moment, because we have an opportunity to try to put some skin in the game through our next general obligation bond. So in 2025, I think October is going to be our next bond election. And because of this work, we've been able to kind of set a vision for some streetscape enhancements and have proposed $7 million to be captured in that bond so that we can get a head start on trying to put some city infrastructure in while we're working on the public investment part. So really appreciate that work and the collaboration and the progress that you've made over time working with the business owners, because it is a two-way street, literally a two-way street with public and private investment.
We appreciate that, and we were happy to be part of it.
Okay. Anything else? Motion to accept that, please?
We don't need a motion for that, it's just a presentation.
Huh?
It's just a presentation.
Okay. No, we don't need a motion on that then. Okay, item D is a River Cruisers update.
Do I have control, or are you going to advance my slides for me? Okay, all right. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing today? My name is Dr. Marilyn Dillon. I am the Mobility Management Administrator and the ADA Coordinator for Embark. Aside from those duties, I also manage all of our contracted services. For those of you that don't know, we do contract with HMS Ferries to run the Oklahoma River cruises for us. Yep, you're going to have to do it. There you go. Thank you. So I wanted to do just a brief overview. I'm not really familiar with how long some of you have been on this board, so I wanted to just take a few minutes to go over what we have going on. So currently we have 5 landings going from my left, your right, this direction. We have Meridian Stockyards, we have the Exchange Landing, we have Bricktown, and we have Regatta Park, and then obviously bright red star there, we're building a FAM landing there at the O'Connor Resort in the new First Americans Museum. Right now, as Jess mentioned, we are doing lock maintenance, so the ferry is not operating on a regular schedule. We're doing what we call circular cruises, just in the basin there around Regatta Park and Stockyards, since we can't go west on the river right now because there's not enough water for the boat to draw and go. But normally our public ferry schedule, you can see it up there, I'm not going to read it out to you. So far this year, we started up again in April. Mother Nature has not been kind to us. We've had a lot of rain. We've had the river drained, but we have seen 3 charters and 84 passengers so far. During the Riverlock's schedule, we were quite surprised at the number of people that are still wanting to come and just ride on the riverboat. Last year, we operated about 60 days, carried 3,564 passengers, did 25 charters and 21 what we call specialty cruises, which I'll go over here in just a moment. Next slide. So, as Jess said, we're making some big progress on the First Americans Museum. Your lower picture there is quite a bit ago, with a much more recent, and even in Jess's picture, you can see where there's been additional progress since the last time I had a slide. We have settled on an initial launch schedule. There'll be 5 boardings a day at the FAM Landing. The first cruise leaves the FAM Landing at 1 p.m., and the service is hourly through 5 o'clock. We're very excited about how that's going. Next slide. I mentioned specialty cruises, so we have these for Father's Day. Mother's Day is usually sold out. Undoubtedly, mothers are more important than fathers when it comes to getting on a boat on the river because we almost always sell out the Mother's Day cruise. And then, of course, we have the cocktail cruises haunting the river at Halloween, and then the big holiday river parade and some holiday cruises as well. Next slide. I mentioned private charter cruises. We're seeing quite a bit of these. I highly encourage it if you have a group together. It's an affordable way to sit and view the beautiful river. Doing it at sunset is just absolutely gorgeous, especially when we get the lock back in place and we get the river full of water. They mentioned the Meridian Corridor going down that direction is lovely on the river, and I highly recommend that everyone try it. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about grand opening plans. Because we've had so much water recently, we have not scheduled a date yet because we were not 100% sure that all this recent rain that we've had was going to slide that construction schedule any further. And so we wanted to wait before we picked a date. But we are actively working through that. These pictures are what we did, a big ribbon cutting ceremony at the Stockyards Landing when we built that landing. We're looking for something similar at the FAM, and we've had some requests for us to coordinate that ribbon cutting with the pedestrian bridge. Embark's Public Affairs and Marketing Managers working diligently with that. You'll probably be getting some outreach soon about your date availability so that we can make sure the trustees are able to attend as well. Next slide. And then that is really all I have for you. You can reach me at marilyn.dillon@okc.gov if you have further questions. Our website is on there with all of our current schedules, and then as we get the lock maintenance finished and we go back to the regular ferry schedule, we'll have an update there on the website for citizens to be able to know that the schedule's changed.
Just a quick comment from me. I know that in the past, the river cruisers have had to, well, there's been times when the river cruisers and the regattas going on the river kind of cross paths. And with the opening at O'Connor, it's not like we can stop the cruisers very often. So I assume, and I know I've talked to Chris about this, that there's a lot of communication going on about river cruisers and still operating when they have boat races going on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Chris, we've had some really good meetings with Chris and his team. The people at HMS Ferries have been on cellular communication with the race directors during the race to make sure that we know when we need to go and when we need to hold. We're going to continue those efforts as we move into the First Americans launch and ribbon cutting. We have a meeting actually to start discussing what it's going to look like once the FAM is operational. So we are on top of that.
Any questions, comments?
And thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Do we vote on it? Need a motion to accept that? Cast your vote. It passes. Item E is the authority schedule of cash receipts and disbursements for the period ending March 31. Any questions on that? Cast your vote. That passes. Item F is a revocable permit with Red Coyote Running and Fitness with a Love Run 5K and 10K on June 28th using streets right away and the South River Trail. Need a motion? Cast your vote. That passes. Item G is a revocable permit with the River Sport Foundation for the Stars and Stripes Regatta on June 28th, using the Boathouse District Regatta Park in the Eastern Basin. Cast your vote. That passes. Item 6 is the claims docket. Any questions on the claims docket? Okay, have to vote. That passes. Item 7 is comments from staff, the director's report.
Good afternoon again, Melinda McMillan-Miller, Director of Parks and Recreation. Hope you received the report. If you have any questions on that report, please let me know. I do want to give a little bit of an update to each of you about some latest developments we've learned about land acquisition and land records within the river corridor. As we've been working with the Army Corps of Engineers, we've learned a lot more information about how land was acquired and how the land was used as part of putting in the locks and the dams on the river, and how those properties can be used today, but also in the future, specifically about land leases or development or land disposal. So as we're learning more and more from the Corps of Engineers, this is becoming really important in all of our investigation into how it will impact the development committee on the trusts for how we want to potentially use the riverfront properties moving in the future. So as we are meeting with our attorneys here and speaking more with the Department of Interior and the Army Corps of Engineers, we'll have more information and details to give you here in the future. It's just a new development that we've all become more heightenedly aware about, and are working very hard to clearly understand the parameters and the rules that we are going to be expected to follow, so we can make sure that we are doing the absolute best we can in the city's best interest and also the public's best interest of how to preserve and enhance those assets on the river. So, any other questions?
Any questions? Any motion to accept that report?
Thank you.
Let's vote. That passes. And trustee comments?
I'll just give an acknowledgement for the reaffirmment of Kathy Williams and Elaine Lyons. Thank you for coming back for another 4 years. We appreciate all of your service, so congratulations on that.
Very good. Comments by citizens? I know we got Chris, why don't you come on up? For those of you who have not met him, this is Chris Sorensen, the new CEO at Riversport Foundation, and Chris and I met and had a very good meeting. I'm enthusiastic about his energy level. Hopefully he can just jump right in and get us ready.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. It was decaf coffee too, so it wasn't the coffee that got me energized. Yeah, I wanted to share, next month I'll do a quarterly update for the committee, but I wanted to share, we hosted 2 regattas this month, and there was one that I really wanted to share because the national championships are going to be early June, which I'll have an update on how we do at that. But on May 2nd through the 4th, we hosted the Central Youth Rowing Midwest Region Championships on the water out there with 750 athletes. We had teams from Denver, almost every team in Texas, and then Kansas, all here competing on the water in hopes to make it to the national championships that will be in Sarasota, again, early June. Riversport did really well. We had 13 podium finishes. You have to have a podium finish to be able to qualify to go to nationals. We will be taking 3 of our teams to nationals to compete at the national level. One really exciting bit of information for us is that our men's 8 actually placed first. The last time our men's 8 has placed first was in 2012, so really big accomplishment for our coaching staff and for the athletes that are on our men's 8 to put in the work and to be able to get first place at the national championship or the Central Region Championship. This was also our first race that the pedestrian bridge was put in place at Akana, which is normally where, in that area where our starting dock sits. And so we got it installed. The pedestrian bridge was a lot better than when it wasn't there. It provides shade for a lot of our volunteers and our officials that are actually on the dock all day long launching these boats. And then we had some reverb coming off the bridge from our PA system, so all of our volunteers could hear really well when we were starting the races due to that reverb. So it really worked out in our benefit to have that bridge put into place and worked well for the start of our races. So I just want to share the exciting news. I'm excited. I really think our men's 8 has a good shot to podium at nationals in Sarasota, and they're doing 2-a-days on the weekends and putting the work in right now, training to get ready for it. So just wanted to share that update.
Very good. Questions for Chris? Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no other citizens to be heard? We are adjourned.